Hi everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel. In this video, I'd like to continue expose the Illuminati and all other secret societies plan to destroy Asia. Okay, let's get started. K-pop star found dead after exposing satanic music industry. K-pop star warned of satanic executives running the music industry shortly before he was found dead in a hotel last December. The lead singer of K-pop group sent a series of troubling texts to his sister shortly before his death. FisherandCitizen.com reports, according to local reports, his final message to his sister was, It's been too hard. Please send me off. Tell everyone I've had a hard time. This is my last goodbye. Investigators found coal briquettes burnt in a frying pan inside Kim's apartment, leading them to believe that he died from carbon monoxide intoxication. He was a prominent figure in K-pop. He was the lead singer of the K-pop group and were dubbed the Princess of K-pop for over a decade. He then launched a solo career in 2015 and published a book entitled Skeleton Flower. Kim's last public appearance was at his solo concert named Inspired on December 10th in Seoul. In 2010, I published an article about the group's video Lucifer, which indicated that K-pop was infiltrated by the agenda of the occult elite. The song described the singers being under the spell of Lucifer. A line from the song aptly described the fate of K-pop stars struck in an oppressive industry. I feel like I've become a clown trapped in a glass castle. He was signed with SM Entertainment. Of course, it's SM. Everything that is related to occult and Satanism is SM. Related to sex and slavery and violence. A Korean company that was often accused of abusing and exploiting K-pop artists. He dies age 27. This is the 27 Club of the Hollywood. The famous singers die before 28 years old. They die at 27. This is Kurt Cobain and all those singers. 27 Club. He is one of several South Korean stars who took their lives at a young age. In 2009, actress killed herself by hanging. She left a suicide note explaining how she was beaten and forced to entertain and have sex with several program directors, CEOs, and media executives. Several other celebrities commit suicide, including singer and actor, model, actress, etc. So they are exactly the same model as Hollywood. So everything is the same. Nothing new under the sun. They are sex slave and promote Satanism, and they joined the 27 Club. His death at age 27 makes him the latest addition to the infamous 27 Club. The group of late singers who died at the young age of 27: Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, and Amy Winehouse. Nearly every one of them died in bizarre circumstances. The final letter. Knight posted Kim's final letter where he explains, in sometimes enigmatic words, his dark mental state in the letter. Oh, okay. So, other than they are slave, and they also are MK Ultra victim. In the letter, Kim sometimes appears to address a specific person, even blaming them for his depression. Who is that person? I'm broken on the inside. Did the depression that slowly groaned away at me eventually devoured me? I couldn't overcome it. I hated myself. I resolved to hold on to memories and shouted at myself to come to my senses. But there was no answer. If there is no way to relieve stifling breath, it's better to just stop. I asked, who can be responsible for me? It's only you. I was utterly alone. It's easy to say you are going to end things. It's hard to actually end things. I lived with that difficulty this whole time. You told me that I wanted to escape. That's right, I wanted to escape from me, from you. You asked who is over there. I said it was me. I said it was me again, and I said it was me again. I asked why I keep forgetting my memories. You told me it was because of my personality. I see. I see that everything is my fault in the end. So he's talking to his alter ego. So the MK Ultra victim, they have their alter ego to contain the demon inside their body. I asked why I keep forgetting. I hoped that people would notice, but nobody knew. You never met me, so of course you would not know I was there. You asked why I live, just because. Everyone just lives, just because. If you ask why people die, they would probably say it's because they're exhausted. I suffered and agonized about it. I never learned how to turn this pain into happiness. Pain is just pain. I tried to push myself past it. Why? Why am I keeping myself from putting an end to it all? I was told to search for the reason why it hurts. I know all too well. I'm hurting because of me. It's all my fault. Because I was born this way. Doctor, is this what you wanted to hear? No, I didn't do anything wrong. When you told me in that calm voice that it's because of my personality, I thought how easy it must be to be a doctor. It's almost fascinating that it hurts this much. People that have it harder than me seem to get along just fine. People weaker than me get along just fine. But that must not be true. Among the people in this world, no one has it harder than me, and no one is weaker than me. But I still try to live. I asked myself why I had to do so hundreds of times, and it was never for me. It was for you. I wanted to do something for me. Please stop telling things you don't understand. You tell me to figure out why I'm having a hard time. I told you several times why. Am I not allowed to be this sad just for those reasons? Does it have to be more specific and dramatic? Do I have to have better reasons? I already told you. Were you even listening? Things you can overcome don't remain as scars. I guess I was not meant to confront the world. I guess I was not meant to lead a life in the public eye. That's why it was hard. Confronting the world and being in the public eye? Why did I make those decisions? It's ridiculous. It's great that I even made it this far. What more can I say? Just tell me I did well. Tell me I did well enough and that I went through a lot. Even if you can't smile while sending me off, don't say it's my fault. You did well. You really went through a lot. Goodbye. Covert Geopolitics. Illuminati in Asia. This is a continuation of our series on Illuminati's conquest in Asia. We are running these articles in the hope of shedding more light on the nature of errors committed against Asians and why they must be corrected. The Power Elite Playbook, China, Shanghaied by Communism. Who and what motivated Japan's brutal activities against its neighbors, as described in Part 14? Britain detrimentally meddled in Asia in 19th century, and America meddled in Asia in the 20th century. Who was behind their actions? Kuhn, Loeb and Company financed Japan's Russian invasion in 1905, while the European Rothschilds financed the Russians, which somehow failed to receive timely armament delivery. Russia's objectives, viable in 1895, were an ice-free Pacific port and the acquisition of just enough leased territory for the continuation of her transcontinental railway. The conflict decimated Russia's economy, preparatory to the well-planned revolution based on philosophy from Karl Marx, 1818 to 83. The House of Rothschild, since 1863, had headquarters in 4 cities: London, Paris, Vienna, and Frankfurt. On January 30th, 1902, Japan signed the Anglo-Japanese alliance with Great Britain. Japan would be the crown's policeman in Asia to do the dirty work, the killing and the dying. The alliance included high-interest loans from Rothschild-controlled British banks to finance Japan's armament purchases and ships from British firms. Great Britain then demanded that Russia abandon the Kwantung Peninsula territory leased from China 6 years before. Russia had already spent $300 million on improvements. The alliance was renewed after the Russo-Japanese War, and in 1911, after Japan's annexation of Korea, part of Japan from 1910 to 1945. As directed, Japan adopted the gold standard. Carl Quigley stated the following about the gold standard. As a consequence, many persons, including financiers and economists, were astonished to discover the 20th century that the gold standard gave stable exchanges and unstable prices. Those who own control the majority of any commodity dictate its value, something to consider regarding the 50-year period of regimen Japanese plundering throughout Asia. As part of the British-Japanese Agreement, 300 British trained Japanese bankers set up the Japanese banking system. That banking system would create devastating hardship in 1927 and again in the 1990s. Great Britain challenged with heavy war debt to America's J.P. Morgan would terminate the 1902 alliance in December 1921. J.P. Morgan and other banks flush with war profits focused on investment opportunities in Japan. Some of Japan's generals had accepted bribes from Vickers Maxim, the company that weaponized the small island country for the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. Vickers Maxim tested their weaponry in the Spanish-American War, partly financed by J.W. Selwyn Company, for the control of Cuba's white gold sugar. Vickers Maxim supplied weapons for the Boer War, 1899 to 1901, to seize the gold and diamond fields of the Witwatersrand. Since those three wars, the Brotherhood of Death has targeted countries receptive to heavy weaponization, a financial windfall to the bankers of death and their cronies, the merchants of death. Depopulating war is predictably followed by peace conferences and prudent disarmament attended by bankers and Kissinger-style politicians. Acquiescent governments junk expensive weapons and shortly replaced them with newer, more deadly, more expensive, and more profitable weapons. The Rothschilds were the biggest shareholders of Vickers Maxim, which was the creation, through company consolidations, of Sir Ernest Cassel, personal banker to Edward VII, who reigned from January 22, 1901 to May 6, 1910. The king's advisory staff included Leopold and Alfred de Rothschild and various members of Sassoon family. Cassel was a close friend of Winston Churchill and his father Randolph, an intimate friend of Nathaniel Rothschild. Cassel made a fortune in Siberian gold mines, steel concerns, and railway companies. The House of Rothschild purchased the London-based Reuters International News Agency in the late 1800s, just in time to propagandize World War I. The House of Rothschild bought control of major news agencies, Harvest of France and Wolf in Germany. British foreign policy and Rothschild foreign policy were one and the same. Yale University, due to a sizable donation, was named after Elihu Yale, 1649 to 1721, who was a governor of the British East India Company, which began smuggling opium into China beginning in 1773. Yale would be the future home of Skull and Bones, founded in 1832 by William Russell, opium smuggler. Many S&B member families grew rich through drug dealing. Coffin, Sloan, Taft, Bundy, Payne, and Whitney. Avril Harriman, S&B, former ambassador in Moscow, was business partners with Prescott Bush, father of George H.W. Bush, S&B, who was appointed chief of the U.S. Liaison Office to the People's Republic of China from September 26, 1974 to December 7, 1975. Clark T. Runt Jr. S&B is the current U.S. ambassador to China. Ambassadors are charged with representing U.S. corporate interests. After Britain's First Opium War, 1839 to 1842, against China, the real power behind the Chinese emperor was the Song family, who were agents of the House of Sassoon. Jewish multinational opium traders, originally from Baghdad, who were later forced to flee to Bombay in India. They obtained exclusive rights from Great Britain to market opium to Shanghai and Hong Kong, from which the Queen received a healthy share of the millions of dollars of profit. By 1890, about 10% of China's total population were opium smokers. In 1874, attention was drawn to China's alleged persuasive decadence by members of the Yale School of Divinity, no doubt because of that opium. So in 1903, a year after the Japan-Great Britain alliance, Yale Divinity School established schools and hospitals throughout China, known as Yale in China. The Saxons preferred to run their finance interests from their luxurious English estates in order to socialize with royalty and other elites like A.J. Balfour, H.G. Wells, and the rising Winston Churchill. In addition to drug profits, and in order to exploit India's cheap labor force, Albert Sassoon established huge textile mills in Bombay. This early day outsourcing destabilized the Lancashire mills and devastated the English citizens who depended on the mills for employment. In 1872, despite this economic assault, Albert was knighted by Queen Victoria, both economically and affected by the collapse in the textile industry. In 1887, Edward Albert Sassoon, son of Sir Albert, married Ellen Caroline de Rothschild of the French banking family, granddaughter of Jacob James Mayer Rothschild, son of Mayer, Sun Yat-sen. November 12, 1866, March 12, 1925, revered as the father of modern China and founder of the Nationalist Party, (NP), was born in Guangdong Province. He became an American citizen while living with an older brother in Hawaii, where he embraced the concept government of the people, by the people, for the people. He returned to China in 1883 and was baptized as a Christian. Troubled by British colonialism and exploitation, Dr. Sun left his medical practice and became involved in the reform plots of 1895 and attempt to establish a democracy. So Dr. Sun, he was a doctor when he went back to China because he studied medicals in a medical school in US at the time. The plot failed and several reformers were executed. Dr. Sun escaped on October 11, 1896. He allegedly was kidnapped and kept prisoner in the Chinese legation in London, established 1877. He returned to China after the successful coup against the Qing Emperor and was proclaimed provisional president of the new Republic of China on December 29, 1911. He hoped to establish peace, freedom, and equality in the country. However, most of northern China was controlled by unsupportive warlords. Dr. Sun Yat-sen married Song Cheng-lin, his second wife, one of the Song sisters, in Japan on October 25, 1915. His brothers-in-law were Harvard-educated Se Ven Song, head of the Sassoon-controlled Bank of China, and financier H. Kung, Minister of Finance. Se Ven Song was the governor of the Central Bank of China and later Minister of Finance, 1928 to 1931, 1932 to 1933. The Song family, with Rothschild Sassoon money, controlled the Chinese government and had carved up the country into drug regions dominated by warlords. Both the British Crown and the Song family profited substantially from the mind-destroying, highly addictive opium business. In 1921, in an attempt to unify China, Dr. Sun established a military government in Guangzhou Canton, Guangdong Province in southern China. He was then elected as president and generalissimo. The Whampoa Military Academy was established in 1924 with Chiang Kai-shek as its commandant. The academy was supplied, financed, and staffed by Russian military advisors. Sun Yat-sen's principal military advisor, Soviet General Vasily Pucher, had helped found the academy. At least 700 cadets were from the Green Gang. So clearly that Dr. Sun, he was a genuine patriot in China. But then when he got married with the second wife, Song Cheng-lin, then he turned into a Rothschild deep state puppet to invade China and with, of course, opium, drugs, and war to benefit everybody within the DS, the Queen Victoria, Rothschild, Winston Churchill, etc. In order to hasten the conquest of the warlords in northern China, he accepted Soviet help and cooperated with local communists after he had been rejected by the Western powers, as Ho Chi Minh had been when he petitioned Woodrow Wilson at the 1919 Versailles Peace Conference, and again by Truman in 1945 and 1946 when he wrote asking for assistance. So he wasn't a communist before, then now he turned into a communist. Sun died of liver cancer on March 12, 1925, at the age of 58 at the Peking Union Medical College Hospital, which was founded in 1921 by the Rockefeller Foundation after he established the China Medical Board of the Rockefeller Foundation in 1915 to westernize traditional Chinese medical practices. Millions of Chinese patients connoted major profits. So you can tell here who controls China: Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Russia here. So it's the first one, of course, is always Rothschild, and then his allies. Then now it's clearly state that it's Rockefeller. Sun Yat-sen's death split the Nationalist Party. Right-wing Chiang Kai-shek took over the National Revolutionary Army, and left-wing Wang Jingwei took over the national government. The perfect scenario for civil war, with Soviet troops commanded by General Michael Borodin. Chiang Kai-shek looted the vaults of the Rothschilds at Song Bank in Shanghai, the nation's banking center. This infiltrated the bankers. Che Fengsheng made Zhang a tempting offer if he would switch loyalties, $3 million in cash. His sister, Mei Ling Song, the sister of the Dr. Song's widow, and the presidency of China for life. Zhang agreed. He ordered the Russians out of China and became a British agent. So, at the time, Japan already invaded and infiltrated by Rothschild, and it's 100% infiltration, no more white hats. But in China and Russia, there are still dual forces to fight against each other. One is white hat and one is black hat. And obviously, originally Dr. Sun and Chiang Kai-shek, they were hats. Then Of course, they can't succumb to money and and the second wife. Then they turned into black hat and corrupted the whole China. And so in history, China and Russia were good friends. They helping each other, the white hats helping each other. Until money involved, drugs involved, and marriages and power involved. They all became British agents. When Zhang and Song were married, Fen Song presented his sister with his personal mansion. Chiang Kai-shek married Meng Ling Song, the sister of a Rothschild agent, on December 1st, 1927, and was chosen president of China on October 10, 1928. Chiang's new alliances were revealed when he implicitly abandoned Nanking, then the capital of the Republic of China, and exposed its vulnerable citizens to 6 weeks of brutal savagery by the invading Japanese beginning on December 13, 1937. So you need to remember that Japanese army is not that powerful. They were powerful because of the British Queen Victoria, Rothschild, Rockefeller, and their alliances. They then gained much power in Asia just because of became a British agent. By 1920, Shanghai, the focus of Western economic interest, contained the majority of the country's industrial workers and the biggest base of communist support in China. The Chinese Communist Party, CCP, dominated Shanghai's municipal government. The NP and the CCP were officially still allies, yet on April 12, 1927, acting on orders from the extraterrestrial international settlements on Shanghai, headed by Lord William Johnston Cussack, the Green Gang Syndicate, and Chiang Kai-shek, leading the Nationalist Army in a reign of terror, plunged the leftists and neighbor activities from Shanghai in what is referred to as Shanghai Massacre. So look at it, Green Gang Syndicate. Green, they always use green, Green New Deal, green is peace and for climate change. It's because green is representing Satan. They executed 5,000 to 6,000 of those captured and drove the CCP underground. Within 6 months, the Chinese Communist movement was halted. As many as 25,000 perished in Shanghai, Nanking, Wuxi, Suzhou, Zhangzhou, Hangzhou, and Canton. Probably most of those who perished could not even fully elaborate on the communist ideology, but wished to alleviate their own misery and poverty. Chiang Kai-shek had been introduced to the Green Gang as early as 1906 and was sponsored for membership in 1908, and participated in gang activities as an officer of the Chinese Army prior to the 1911 Revolution. His police record in the British international settlement in Shanghai include murder, extortion, armed robbery. The Green Gang, operating from the French Concession, was a criminal cabal and the most powerful secret society in China, which was absorbed into the corporate state system after 1932. When opium imports were banned in 1917, drug dealing went underground, and the Shanghai traffickers set up their own refineries. Thereafter, illegal drug distribution was dominated by the Green Gang, headed by Tu Yunxing, who was head of the Changwang Bank and chairman of the board of directors of the Commercial Bank of China, which made it easy to finance his drug enterprise. Law Kissick actually directed China's opium policy through Ze Wencheng, who carried out the day-to-day business operations for Jardine Matheson from 1927 to 1942. Kissick was the director of the Jardine Matheson and was closely associated with the management of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank, which is HSBC. Additionally, he was chairman of the Shanghai Municipal Council, governor of Hudson's Bay Company, director of the Bank of England, vice chairman of Alliance Assurance, and director of British Petroleum. Shanghai became a drug depot. Earlier, Kissick had collaborated with Sam and Abe Bondman to found a pure drug company to illegally distributed whiskey into Canada. Okay, so remember Dr. Sun? He failed and he escaped and ran to Taiwan and became the hero in Taiwan. And of course, his followers went with him. So Taiwan is Chinese, but due to the disagreement, the civil war, and everything, so Taiwan claimed themselves is not Chinese. So it's here in I think the history repeating itself here in U.S. now, in the end times. Our country is divided, so half of us is patriot. We are voting for U.S. as U.S. citizens, but half of them, I think is MK Ultra mind controlled by the deep state. So they said that this land is not only for the U.S. citizens. This land actually is for everybody, and so that is the history repeating itself. The British agent directly ripped a country in half. So in history is China and Taiwan, and now is within the U.S. In June 1932, Sam Wensheng resigned as finance minister after failing to raise sufficient money to fight communism. He agreed to return if the government of China would resort to opium as a new revenue source, which might solve China's financial crisis. Consequently, millions of acres were taken out of food production, which greatly impacted food China and reduced peasant survival. The worst famine occurred in the Shanxi province between 1928 and 1933, wiping out a third of the population. As many as 6 million lives were lost in 4 provinces. I'm not a smoker, so I don't know if you smoke weed, is it as addictive as opium? But at least they are again using drugs to divide the country, to depopulate the country here in U.S. right now. So several years ago, each state of the states, they try to legalize marijuana. I don't want to compare marijuana to opium, but then the tactic is the same. They use drug to divide people, to mind control people. At the end of the day, it's depopulation, try to kill people because, everybody focused on making the drugs, right? Growing the plants, and nobody concerned about the food shortages. Well, will continually on the rise because nobody concentrate on producing food. Instead of that, they just like will focus on smoking and growing plants to smoke. So that is the same tactic. I'm not saying like marijuana is bad for you or like, I'm not talking about that, but like they shift some people's focus on not eating, not producing, but just like caring about or earning a lot of money by growing the plants and selling, right? That's what I meant. Personal freedoms have been under worldwide attack, especially since the inception of the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. My early on my videos, I explained CFR, Rothschild, 13 Bloodlines, the Deep State, Queen of England, London, City of London, etc. So you can go back to my videos earlier, probably last year, the beginning of last year, and it's spin-off organizations which played a part in the tyrannical control in the Far East. In 1925, the Institute of Pacific Relations (IPR) was established in 12 countries. So it's like a branch of CFR. It was financed by the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations and controlled by an alliance of Morgan and Rockefeller interests in Wall Street. All the players exposed themselves: Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan, CFR, IPR. Other financing came from Standard Oil, IT&T, Vacuum Oil, Shell Oil, International Business Machines (IBM), International General Electric (GE), Time Magazine, of course, JP Morgan, no doubt, and National City Bank and Chase National Bank, and private individuals with Wall Street connections. Harry Dexter White and Owen Littlemore, both high-level State Department officials, were members of the IPR and planned the destruction of the Chinese economy. They falsified documents claiming that the Chinese communists were simply farmers promoting agricultural reform. From 1943 to 49, popular U.S. magazines like the Saturday Evening Post and Collier's sanctioned the communist movement. Mao Zedong, who had fought on the side of Dr. Sun's revolutionaries in 1911, was portrayed as a reformer. In 1945, Littlemore suggested to President Truman a communist nationalist coalition government, which became the basis of Truman's China policy. Announced it on December 15, 1945. Chi Cho-ting, who collaborated with Soviet intelligence agents, worked for the Institute of Pacific Relations and subsequently became a high Chinese Communist official. The IPR's party line and the Kremlin's party line emanate from the same source. The left wing of the Hegelian dialectic orchestrated opposition. The right wing is fascism. Darwin influenced Frederick Wilhelm Nietzsche founded Nihilism, a forerunner of the fascism, embraced it after World War I by Mussolini and Hitler. Mussolini's doctrine of fascism, co-written by Giovanni Gentile, and Marx's earlier Communist Manifesto, 1848, provided the polar political opposites that breed the Cold War. Littlemore left the IPR to assume a post as Chiang Kai-shek's political advisor in 1941. He had been recommended by fellow traveler Lachlan Curry, economic advisor to President Roosevelt. The U.S. government predictably adopted the IPR plan to cut aid and ammunition to Chiang Kai-shek, ultimately resulting in the suppression of 600 million Chinese between 1945 and 1949. But Chiang got his $3 million, a mansion, a well-connected wife, and a relatively cushy life. The Chinese who survived the so-called collateral damage got tyrannical communism. Hope you guys like this video. I talk to you guys in the part 4. Okay, bye.